536 BC, 33:59 AM. In the second year of Darius' rule over Babylonia, the prophet Zechariah receives confirmation through a vision that the 70 years revealed in Daniel's writings are accomplished. He prophesies of the coming of the Messiah, described as the branch and as having 7 eyes, the same description given to him in the Revelation record. 535 BC, 3360 AM. Daniel the prophet at 89 years old finishes the book of Daniel, a work of apocalyptic visions, similar to the Apocalypse revelation of the New Testament. Daniel is told twice that the interpretation is sealed until the end days. Daniel completes his book exactly 630 years before John received the revelation of the Apocalypse in 96 AD. 1 Daniel. 534 BC, 3361 AM. This is the 4th year of Darius over Babylon. As Cyrus had now returned from his military conquests, this is his 3rd year of co-rulership with Darius over Babylon. The biblical account claims that Daniel lived until this time when both Darius and Cyrus ruled Babylon. In this year Daniel had a vision when an angelic being appeared to him and spoke. Others nearby felt the ground tremble but did not hear what Daniel heard. The archangel Gabriel appeared and informed the prophet that 4 kings would rule Persia, the 4th king stirring up all nations against the realm of Grecia, but his kingdom would be broken, and afterward Egypt and Syria, Ptolemaic and Seleucid dynasties, would emerge from the 4 generals of Alexander of Macedon. These 4 would divide into 2 chief powers, dynasties, that would later make war against one another until a vile person, Antiochus Epiphanes IV, emerged and ruins Egypt with war, taking great spoil. The king of the north, Syria, would attempt to invade Egypt again, but he would be stopped by ships from Chittim, prompting him to return to Syria. Full of wrath, he would invade Judea and pollute the sanctuary temple, and take away the daily sacrifice. The Chittim are the Romans, and they would soon be entering the world stage as the next empire. In this year, Zechariah the prophet foretold that the Israelites would be remembered by God in the faraway countries he had driven them. He also foretold that the future Messiah would be sold for 30 pieces of silver. This was the price for a slave, the sum Judas accepted for betraying Jesus. Tarquin the Proud deposed King Servius of Rome with force, and then had him killed by hired assassins. Tarquin then had all the senators and his political opponents allied to Servius killed. Tarquin began the Temple of Jupiter in Rome on the Capitoline Hill, and the workmen excavating the site were astonished to find a human fossil head with facial features still intact. Etruscan diviners interpreted this to mean that Rome was to be the head of all nations. His name was L. Tarquinius Superbus, and he became the 7th king of Rome, his reign lasting 25 years until the rebellion resulted in the founding of the Republic of Rome in 509 BC. He was given the name the Proud because of a famous incident involving the Sibyl. The Roman prophetess was from a Greek settlement in Italy, and it was acknowledged that the Sibyls were originally Hebrew prophetesses. She appeared in the court of Tarquin with 9 holy books of prophecies, the Sibylline oracles, and demanded the king to pay her price for these sacred books that outlined the future. The king said no, and she cast 3 of the books into the fire, astonishing the court. Then they were further exasperated when she offered the 6 books remaining for the same price. Again the bewildered king refused, and she cast 3 more books into the flames. Then she demanded he pay the original sum for the last 3 books, and this time the stunned king relented and paid her price. These books were copied, and the books of the Sibyl became famous and consulted by the Romans. 1 Daniel, 2 Zechariah, 3 Livy, 5 Prophets of Doom. 530 BC, 3365 AM. Approximate time that Xenophanes was teaching. From Colophon he taught against the mythologies of Homer and Hesiod, abhorring the multiplicity of gods. He was about 40 years old. 1 Cosmos of the Ancients. 529 BC, 3366 AM. Cyrus of Persia passed over the Araxes River to conquer the populous Massagetae, a people dwelling in an expansive realm along the Caspian Sea. It was known that these were the descendants of the people the Assyrians forcibly deported from Israel 216 years earlier. 108 plus 108. Cyrus sought to bring them back under subjection. As Getae, they are identified as former prisoners, a people renowned for their warlike nature who were led then by Queen Tomyris, who sent a message to Cyrus imploring him to leave, or, if he sought to attack, then wait for her troops to pull back so as to give his army safe passage over the river. It was a noble gesture, but Cyrus attempted to deceive the Massagetae and ended up killing many of them. They even caught Queen Tomyris' son, who committed suicide. Queen Tomyris sent Cyrus another message, asking him to leave and return her son, or she would give Cyrus more blood than he could drink. In the battle that followed, the Persians were decimated and Cyrus was killed. Queen Tomyris decapitated Cyrus and immersed it in a vat of blood to fulfill her vow. The Getae would later be known as Goths, the greatest enemies of Rome. The Massagetae were the beginning of the fulfillment of Jacob, who adopted the sons of Joseph in Egypt, Ephraim and Manasseh, 10 years earlier in 1639 BC, a people who would grow into many mighty nations. This was 432 years after the temple was finished in Jerusalem in 961 BC. 1. The 48 Laws of Power. 2. Post-captivity names of Israel. 527 BC, 3368 AM. Another group of Jews departed the Persian domains to join their kin who were trying to rebuild Jerusalem and the temple. This group came with great wealth given to them 2 years earlier by decree of Cyrus before he was killed. Archaeologists have also found a vase inscription concerning Cyrus giving the Jews a load of treasure for the restoration of their temple, an artifact excavated from a mound in Iraq. Josephus in Antiquities wrote that when the Persians permitted the Jews to return from their captivity to Judea, many did return. However, some from Judah preferred to stay in the Persian domains. He also wrote that the, quote, entire body of the people of Israel remained in that country, wherefore there are but 2 tribes in Asia and Europe subject to the Romans, while the 10 tribes are beyond the Euphrates till now, and are an immense multitude and not to be estimated in numbers, unquote. What Josephus did not know was that Israelites were all over Europe and Asia, having departed through the Caucasus passes and up through Asia north between the Caspian and Black Seas. As Israelite descended peoples filled the earth, the people of Judah were blinded as to the identity of their ancient kin, for none went by the name Israel after 881 BC. The calendrics for this year of temple rebuilding demonstrates its import. This was 1260 years after Jacob, Israel, was born in 1787 BC, and 476 years after the throne of David was established in Jerusalem in 1003 BC. This was a judged time period of 434 years after Israel and Judah engaged in civil war, and began the 2 kingdoms, the divided kingdom chronology in 931 BC. This was 400 years after the temple was sacked by the Egyptians in 927 BC. And 70 years after the Babylonians sacked the temple in 597 BC. 1. Esdras. 2. Zoroastrianism. 3. Antiquities.